All right, so today for our virtual community event hosted by AgileThought, we're going to focus on creative ways to make Scrum fun. We know that a large part of Scrum is obviously the human interaction and those things, and we like to figure out ways to make that more enjoyable, as we go. All right, so we can move to the next slide. So we have a huge treat today. I will actually not be out front as sometimes in the past, and I'm going to take a back seat to MC Moore, who is one of our consultants in our Innovate practice, Erica Mendez, who is also a consultant in our Innovate practice, and Justin Battle, who is a consultant in our Innovate practice as well. So you're for a big treat. I know they know ways of making Scrum fun, and I'm just looking forward to hearing and seeing what they have to share today. All right, next slide. So just a quick bit about AgileThought. We are located across the Americas. So we are in the United States, Mexico, Costa Rica, Chile, Argentina, Brazil. Founded in 2000, roughly around 3,000 or so consultants. And we very much look to have impact with our clients. And at any point, if you think that we could be of service to you, please feel free to reach out and ask us. We are comprised of 3 primary areas. Those areas we call lines of services, the transform area, which actually now we call coaching, but that's where we do our strategic consulting, transformations, and so forth. Our build area for digital delivery, and run for digital operations. So we host these community events, obviously, as you know, free of charge. We do it for the public. We like to build a community. And so that's why we do it. We think that if we help strengthen the community, we're not creating competitors for ourselves. We're just helping the Agile community become better. So as mentioned, topic today, creative ways to make Scrum fun. The way the conversation will flow today, we will have an icebreaker. Then we will talk about why is making Scrum fun important. So it's not just about being fun, but it's actually valuable to your teams. Different ways to make Scrum fun, and playing a game. All right, so now I am going to hand it over to Justin.
Thank you, Quincy, and welcome everyone. Glad to have you all on board. So in keeping in today's theme for fun, figured we'd start with an exercise that I love, to recreate an aspect that when we attend, professional growth events like these. What I tend to personally remember when I attend these events is the folks that I end up meeting. And normally this happens organically in physical settings. Virtually in the world that we're in today, it's got to be done intentionally. In fact, I was going to mention way before my AgileThought path started, Quincy and MC I've met in the past in an event like this. Now, if you ask me what the event was or where it was, I won't be able to recall it, but I do remember meeting them. So recreating that experience and bring that up into your own teams, I think it's important, especially when you're starting off as a brand new team. So in a moment, we'll separate out into breakout rooms. Barring any technical hurdles, y'all will be paired with the same folks later in today's session. What does this mean? So be at your best. This is one step above, the swipe left and right digital dating world that exists today. And how do we make this icebreaker exercise a little more easy for everyone and more substantial as far as the conversation starters? So this is where I introduce the Catalyst cards. So icebreakers using Catalyst cards. So momentarily, you'll be shown a list of cards shown on the screen here that are carefully chosen and universal symbols of objects, events, and personalities. So basically in a moment, we'll get into our breakout rooms. We're going to be sharing the Miro link that you see on the slide. As you get into your breakout rooms, click this link and you'll be presented with about 30 or so cards. Each person's going to identify a card that speaks to them, right? And then you take a moment, we'll have 5 minutes to discuss each of our choices. And then we'll come back all together into the main room that we're all in right now. So for extra credit for anyone, basically when we get back out of the breakouts, introduce someone other than yourself from the breakout room that you were part of, and introduce them along with their choice to the wider group. So that's extra credit. All right, any questions? If not, we can initiate the breakout rooms. I see the Miro link in the chat that y'all should be able to click on and start seeing those cards. So let's kick it off. Have fun.
I think we all should be back.
We're all back. All right, excellent.
We're back. We're back. Yeah.
So I think a number of us panelists hopped around rooms. It looks like everybody managed to do the exercise. So are there any volunteers out there going for the extra credit? And as a reminder, the extra credit is you introduce someone other than yourself and their chosen card. And you speak to it, basically.
I'll go.
Excellent, Charlene, go ahead.
We had Brett that was all about ice cream because he loved ice cream and it's yummy and, you know, great flavors, and that's what he's thinking about today.
Awesome. So we'll remember Brent going forward as the ice cream man. Excellent. Thanks, Charlene. Anyone else?
Sure. We actually had day and night people. So Liz and Jamie were both night people, and Julie was a day for a sun person. So kind of had the day surrounded there.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. All right. So debrief is where we go into next. So basically, questions to ponder over these Catalyst cards. Did the use of these cards enhance the way you introduce yourself to someone new? Will it be easier to remember who all you met today? And for the extra credit rooms, Charlene or Dan, did you have to shift your level of listening in order to be able to present to the wider audience? So what I mean by that is we're listening to be able to share and attentively, right? As opposed to listening to being able to just speak when it's your turn type thing, which often happens during Scrum events, and the level of attentions can be affected as a result. Something to think about. And most importantly, was this fun? All right.
It was.
Thank you. All right, more about Catalyst cards. So we used it today for an icebreaker exercise, but if you check out their website, so their website is catalyst.cards. It's actually in a form of an app, and you can actually see these images on their website. And they are deeply rooted in cognitive neuroscience. So the selection of the cards that the artwork basically enhances metaphorical thinking. So more uses, there are actually more games even suggested on there. So something to try out with your teams as you see fit. All right, a couple of more games here. And next we get into the why.
Yeah, so why is this important to us? I mean, we just had a great time doing an icebreaker and kind of having a little fun there, but why is it important to have fun? And also, really, when we think about it, why is it important to have fun at work? We're using Scrum as a framework, but that's just the framework that we're using for work. So this really applies overall. So we've all either witnessed or experienced burnout at some point in our life, whether or not it was us or someone else. And it's actually estimated that in the US, companies have historically lost upwards of 300 billion cumulatively a year due to absenteeism, turnover, diminished productivity, and legal and/or insurance costs, according to the American Institute of Stress. I mean, this was before the pandemic, so we can only imagine what the pandemic did to that. And not only is this a lot of wasted money, but I mean, it's really hard on us as employees, and none of us really want to experience that. So how do we prevent this? And really one of the great ways of doing that is sparking joy. And I just love hearing that because it reminds me of Marie Kondo. But sparking joy, and people really naturally want to seek joy and really connections, and it connects us a lot closer than any other thing, and it's more powerful than any other human experience. So we should really strive to have the same mentality in the workplace and really bring it into the workplace. And that's proven within studies like the one that A.T. Kearney did, where 90% of respondents in 2018 from across the globe, so this is globally, said that they really expect and want to experience a substantial degree of joy at work. However, for some reason, only 30% of people came back and said that this was their actual experience. So we're really missing the mark here somewhere. And one of the best ways to try and bridge that gap and bring joy into work is by bringing it with fun. I mean, we seek it with our personal experiences, we seek it with our family, let's seek it at work.
Next, we get into the how.
So now we move into the how, and we're going to talk a little bit about some guiding principles. The information that I'll share with you in just a moment, really, it came from an article around incorporating improv into Agile with games. But the notion, what's behind it, just made perfect sense. And as it turns out, even for me, as I try to bring fun to my Scrum team, it's like, I'm doing that too. It's like, wow, didn't realize that. There were 3 guiding principles that the author had mentioned, and I want to kind of share those with you now. First, being authentic. That's so very important. You know, in the world today and society, we know and we pick up on plastic people pretty quickly. Being authentic is important, especially with the people that we work with on our Scrum teams. You know, if you think about how many hours out of a typical week we're at work and with members of our Scrum team in one way or another, they figure that out, pretty quickly. So being authentic kind of lays the groundwork there, because in some cases there could be reticence on the part of some folks on the team. Next, we want to work to find opportunities. As Justin had mentioned a few moments ago around listening, part of that listening is taking action. Once you hear something and once you find an opportunity. For me, I'll tell you, in the Scrum teams that I've worked with in the past and presently, the opportunity for me is when we have a little bit of a dead spot. After daily Scrum is concluded, and especially on a Friday, because you know how Fridays are, it's kind of the beginning of the weekend. I've created something called Fun and Games Fridays. And it's an opportunity for fun. And we create a window, a very small window of 15 minutes or less. But it's an opportunity for us to come together and to talk. Part of that is introducing the game. And it's a game, that hopefully you have confidence in and you feel comfortable leading and facilitating with the team, but finding the right opportunity, finding the right game. So much of the work that we do today is remote, so we have to tailor now the games to our remote working environment. And then last, we do want to focus on the debrief. For those of you who noticed and paid attention a few moments ago, as Justin led us through the icebreaker, there was a debrief. We all part of this the process around bringing games and bringing fun is to connect the emotional side with what people have just experienced with something practical and something that we're trying to achieve and attain from a work setting. I will generally have my Fun and Games Friday, and I'll throw it back to the team and ask the team, guys, why do you think I brought this particular game to you today? Well, how does this game relate to the work that we do day in and day out to achieve our sprint goal? That's how, those are the guiding principles that I follow, and I think it's worked very well, and I've won over many, many people, and people actually enjoy and look forward to the games that we play on Fun and Games Friday. So we are.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Very good. One of the great ways to start is with these Scrum events. We all have to have them. We're all doing Scrum, hopefully, if you're in this meeting. And so let's turn those meetings that we have on a sprint by sprint basis into something a little bit more fun. So one of the first events that we have is sprint planning. I know I personally haven't made sprint planning fun, so I'll let this come from the horse's mouth. MC, what's one of the best ways that you've made sprint planning fun?
For me, it's the introduction of music. You'll see there that link for Spotify. That is to introduce some tunes. It's downtime. We even had, we were very fortunate on our team just today, one of our devs, he said, I want to share my music with the team. And so we all, and the thing is, it was a blast from the past. We listened to 80s music. So it was right up my alley.
Nice.
Right, and then there's daily Scrum. I mean, I know that I've instituted, especially when you have people that are using video, it's so much easier to institute a little bit of fun in a daily Scrum. But doing Hawaiian Shirt Fridays, or I've seen people do things like, my favorite one was a fun hat on Fridays, the Crazy Hat Fridays. I don't remember what they called it, but it turned from everyone just wearing a normal hat into people coming in with boxes or whatever they could find around them. And it would just create a little fun chuckle before they started daily Scrum. You can also just do little games like MC was saying that you tack on, and I know he'll go into that a little bit more later. The next one is sprint review. Sprint review is probably going to be the hardest one in there because it's a lot more business-like and you've got your stakeholders there. However, if you really think of the traditional sense of us having fun and really trying to spark that joy, one of those things in work that sparks joy is us knowing that our work is worth something, knowing why we're doing something and the fact that it's resonating with those that are paying for it and those that we're trying to impress and those that we're trying to work with. So having your stakeholders be there and actually communicate with the team members and the team communicate back and having that really good relationship is a great way to bring some fun and some joy that comes out of that meeting and it not be a monotonous kind of funky meeting. And then sprint retrospective. This is my favorite one. You can see on the bottom right there is an example of one that I've actually used in the past, but you can really take those two questions that we tend to fall into a rut with of what went well and what didn't go well, and play around with it and turn it into something a little bit different depending on what you've seen the team do. Personally, as a Scrum Master, I mean, I'll pay attention all sprint and then come up with something for this one as an example. Geese, you know, the team was having some teamwork issues. So geese are really good at teamwork. So let's think of us in terms of geese and how are we flying together? How are we flying solo? How are we, you know, experiencing obstacles like weather? Let's think about it a little bit differently so that we can really inspect without just assuming that we're inspecting the same stuff over and over. And then, do you guys have any other good examples of any of these?
Yeah, one thing I want to mention for sprint retros, you know, MC mentioned fun day Fridays. You know, I've been on projects where, you know, having the time to be able to schedule another session to do fun events could become difficult. So the retrospective is actually one of those sessions where you can turn it into a fun event alongside identifying, you know, improvements as well. So I'll run some of these games, find opportunities to run games during a retrospective session, which has been one of those easier sessions or events that you can repurpose a bit to bring some fun.
I was going to add as well, Erica, there are a couple of graphics that are at the bottom of the slide there. I'll explain those really quickly. First and foremost, one of the things that we did for fun was created collages for our Scrum team. I, in a previous life, had worked in a scaled Agile environment, and we would have to do team introductions. And the teams were remote, just as we are today. So those collages were a lot of fun. I actually have and had one in my office, my cube, back in the day, because it reminded me of that team. That's how close and how bonded we were. Secondly, in a previous life, and you know, again, this is about fun. We wanted to have fun, so the teams came up with their own avatar mascot. You know, one of those were a pink unicorn. The team picked that, and a hamster. So these are different ways to approach fun and getting the work done at the same time.
Yeah. And so probably the most important thing when looking at all of these and kind of looking at making your Scrum events fun is going to be reading the team and making sure to work with what they enjoy. If you're going to do something gardening themed and the team has absolutely no interest in gardening, it's not going to work well for them. They're going to be bored and they're going to be like, why are you doing this? So just do something that you know the team loves and really work with that.
So I was going to take just a few minutes and further talk about bringing fun to Scrum. Obviously we've talked for a moment about the use of games and activities. It's not merely about games, in and of themselves, but activities that will kind of stimulate and bring thought to the team. I think these types of things to make things fun, it's so important, and Justin had alluded to it earlier, when the team is brand new. Think about how it is when you get thrust together, you're a bit tentative, you don't know the other people. Bringing fun into Scrum helps to bring people together and breaks down some of that tentativeness initially. We also learn more about one another. When we have personal maps, stories, personality assessments, things like that, we learn more about one another as a Scrum team, and that brings us together. Because if we're having fun together and when times are good, it means that when times get tough and we really need to lean on one another, it's easier to do that, and people are more willing to do it. It creates that bond, obviously, within the team, and that's what we need, as I said, when times get tough. I love to use the games and other activities to bring out creativity and spontaneity. When we think about being agile and being able to pivot and things like that, these games or activities help to simulate that for our team, because we are responsible for helping bringing positivity. The work should be fun, and getting things accomplished. And lastly, I just wanted to kind of circle it back around. It really does begin with you and me and everyone who happens to be a servant leader on a Scrum team. It's not just the Scrum Masters, that it clearly extends to product owners, and it extends to every single person on the team. We're all servant leaders, and if we go at it with the right approach, with the right mindset, others will come along, others will follow.
All right, with that, actually, that brings us to our next game time. We've been talking for a few minutes, so to bring the fun back into the session, let's play another game. All right, so this one's called the half sentence. We're going to be back into our rooms, and there's going to be a time box of, 7 minutes? Basically, there's going to be a sentence that we're going to start off with. There's a first half of the sentence is going to be presented very shortly, and the subsequent person basically adds to the sentence and continues the conversation. So you restate the first half of the shared sentence and add to the sentence, and you can get very creative on this one. So the opening one half sentence we'll all use is, when I think of fun, ... So here's an example for me, if this helps you all of you again. So when I think of fun, I think of my two boys running around having a blast. So that would be my contribution to the sentence. The next person would pick up on a blast from the past. Nothing like throwbacks to remind me of the good old days. And then the third person would be, in my good old days, whatever. So hopefully that gives you guys enough instruction on what this game is about. So let's join back our breakout rooms. We'll take 7 minutes and come back into a debrief and see where y'all landed, especially when we all start from the same half sentence. It'll be good learning. All right, have fun. All right. Thanks, Quincy. I see folks coming back with a lot of smiling faces, so that tells me everybody had fun. The room I was particularly in, I heard the names Kevin Hart, and I don't know who Kevin Hart is. Anybody else want to share?
I think a lot of ours were vacation themed.
Yeah,
Vacations
lots of Cancun, Playa del Carmen.
Fun places.
That time of year.
Yeah,
right.
But lots of talk about getting out of the lockdown.
Excellent. So our debrief for this one, questions to ponder. Where would your story have gone if one of the members on your breakout was not there? If you all followed through a string and that particular person that contributed to that string of thought was not there, where would your story landed? How valuable is each person's creativity? One input can totally change the direction of your sentence, right? Your next sentence. And most importantly, was this fun? All right, I hope you all enjoyed that. Next up are additional resources. So actually the room I was in, y'all started sharing some of the things y'all do. MC, Erica, and myself collected a couple of additional resources. So we'll be sure to share this slide deck out to you, but these are some of the great websites out there that go into this very notion of doing fun activities with your teams. And if you remember anything, as MC said, most importantly is as you select these games, be authentic, find the opportunities, and focus on the debrief. The fact that you've taken time out to learn ways to introduce fun into your own teams is itself a testament. We hope to have given you ideas you can take back to your environments and make it more fun. At the end of the day, everything that we presented today revolved around deepening our connections to each other. That will undoubtedly make the world a better place. And best of all, we get to stay human. We're not robots doing work. All right, that brings us to our Q&A session. We have a few minutes. How are we doing on time? In 5 minutes.
We're doing pretty good. I know we had at least one in the chat centering around retrospectives. So during a retrospective where a client is participating, typically how does the client feel about games integrated into the workday? It's an interesting one. I can take it unless someone else feels really passionate about it.
Yeah.
I know I tend to actually fight pretty hard against the client being in the retrospective and make sure it's just the team, because I've had teams that don't really feel comfortable in front of the client as much. That can be a hard one to fight depending on who your client is. But a lot of times if it's something that we try and make fun, most people don't really see something bad in that. It really depends on the client and you got to feel your way through that one. But most people like to have a little bit of fun in the workday. And as long as you're getting your stuff done and probably the normal time box, they're going to be okay with it from my experience. Unless you're having an extra 4 hours a day of having fun, they're not going to really miss an extra 10 minutes.
Yeah, and if you're actually forced to include the client, you know, it may actually loosen up the perception of the client, right, to the team and create that sense of psychological safety as a result. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions in the parking lot? I didn't get a chance to check. Let's see.
Erica, I appreciate the comment about wearing a hat on a Friday, because I have a hat collection of about 180 some hats. So I could really use that in on that approach.
And that actually wasn't my idea, but you're probably in the same line as MC, because I think MC, you can't see it, but typically has a nice hat rack behind him of just a ton of hats.
Awesome. It's all about having fun, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
And taking things like you're saying. I mean, if you know you have a team members with a bunch of hats that really enjoy hats, take that and run with it.
I'll share one quick example of like running with something and kind of reading the room. So we have someone on the team, and I want to say his name because I want to give the credit to him. So Daniel Lair. So he, just started introducing these dad jokes during the Scrum, and then it made its way into our Scrum of Scrums. And so we would literally, like at the end of Scrum of Scrums or at the end of Scrum in their individual team, just dedicate like a quick minute for him to do a dad joke. And I don't know where he gets them from, but he has them ready at a moment's notice at any given time. And they are generally hilarious. And it just became a thing where we were able to always end, or majority of the time we end on a good jovial, upbeat note. And so that's something I thought was, maybe advantageous to offer in the conversation here.
Actually heard dad jokes being mentioned in one of the rooms.
Yeah, I like the dad jokes idea a lot because we kind of do it as well. Another idea that my team is using and we really love is we use Teams. So you could do this on Zoom as well, but it's a 5-minute icebreaker for each of our meetings, whether that's planning or our daily stand-up, is just an icebreaker of choice. So as you can see, my background is penguins. This past week we did what is our spirit animal, and we have to put a picture to match the icebreaker, and it just gives a fun little discussion. So you can change this topic and keep changing your background, and it adds new conversation. So
that's a great one.
I shared in the chat a tool that I use, especially during retros with my teams, and it's a Jeopardy lab. So you can go out and build a customized Jeopardy board and play a Jeopardy game with your team. You can even copy over some existing Jeopardy boards and not reinvent the wheel to make it a little easier. I've done Jeopardy games for team builders. I've done Jeopardy games based upon, for example, their team working agreement and agile related questions, so I can see what they know and understand and what they may have questions about. And it really helps to bond the team a little bit. They have some fun, they laugh, they learn about each other, and also it helps me identify where there might be some opportunities for training. So just wanted everybody to know that.
Thank you for sharing, Charlene. All right, we're at the 55-minute mark. So I think that brings us to our next point. So if there are any additional questions that anybody that could not get a chance to pose, we did have the parking lot still available that we can answer and respond to you offline.
Thanks again for joining us today. We hope this has been insightful and encouraging in terms of ways of having fun using Scrum. So our next event will be August 26th, and we're going to talk about getting the business to join the Agile journey. So as many of us know, sometimes bringing the business along can be a little kicking and screaming, and sometimes having them to not try to turn it from an Agile journey into something else undesirable is a challenge. So we'll have some interesting discussion and conversation around that. These sessions, as I mentioned at the beginning, are recorded, so you can always go to AgileThought.com and search our library for past webinars, and those are made available to anyone. You can just go out there, don't have to have a login or anything like that. It's just made available. All right, next slide. So if you want to connect with any of our panelists today, you could actually use the LinkedIn app on your phone and just search the QR code, and you can actually connect with any of us there if you so choose. Well, we're being recorded, so I was going to add our inside joke about Android versus Apple, but I'll leave.
Yeah, it was a moment for us to show off our phones right now. Point the phones to the screen to get the link.
So someone said they want to hear it. Let me make sure I say this in a very safe way. All right. So it's just that you can see the difference between my QR code and theirs, and it's an indicator of the one person who has an Android and the others that have iPhones. So I'll leave it there. But thank you again. And yes, if you would like to, connect with any of us, any of our panelists today, please do. All right, and next slide. Looking at the chat. So again, we're AgileThought. Thank you very much. We try to host these once a month, and your feedback is important to us. If you think in any way that we could be of service to you, be it Agile coaching, team level coaching or enterprise coaching, transformation work, or we also have, as I mentioned earlier, build practice as well. So anything along those lines, we're happy to help, and feel free to reach out to us at any given time.